Well, let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. With regard to the suggestion that the RNC should be in the business of picking and choosing Republicans who ought to be supported, traditionally the view of the National Party committees is that we support all members of our party, regardless of their positions on some issues.
Do you have confidence in her, Ronna McDaniel, as chairwoman of the committee?
I do, but the issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of singling out members of our party who may have different views from the majority. That's not the job of the RNC.
How sad a state of the Republican Party that this comment by Mitch McConnell is what's considered courageous. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that McConnell was able to acknowledge that January 6th was an insurrection and that the goal of the insurrectionists was to overturn a legitimate election and that the RNC is inappropriately targeting members who committed the crime of acknowledging as much. But on the other hand, those things are all objective reality. Let's not forget, too, that when Mitch McConnell had the chance to actually hold the person who incited the insurrection accountable after the impeachment trial, he voted to acquit Donald Trump. Of course, he then stood up and outlined a slew of reasons why Trump was responsible, thereby undermining the whole point of his vote only moments prior. And that's because McConnell wanted to play both sides of the coin. He wanted to coddle Donald Trump and get the credit for being righteous. Instead, all he did is prove himself a hypocrite. And while we're on the subject of McConnell positioning himself on the wrong side of January 6th, here he is blocking the bipartisan January 6th commission, thereby killing off any participation among Republican senators.
Now, Mr. President, on one final matter, after careful consideration, I've made the decision to oppose the House Democrats' slanted and unbalanced proposal for another commission to study the events of January the 6th.
And by the way, the slanted and unbalanced commission that had been set forth at the time, yeah, that gave equal subpoena power and an even partisan split among members. But sure, way too partisan for Mitch McConnell. Got it. So look, again, that's not to say that if given the choice between McConnell acknowledging that this was an insurrection versus him not acknowledging it, that I wouldn't want him to acknowledge it, but rather to show the consequences of these Republicans constantly opening the door to criminal behavior and corruption, and then turning around and pretending that they didn't. There is a systemic rot on the right where these people are so deathly afraid of Donald Trump that instead of being able to consistently and clearly condemn his actions, we have them waffling and flailing all over the place. We have Mitch McConnell acquitting him before turning around and offering up all the reasons why he effectively shouldn't be acquitted. If this party actually stood for something, we wouldn't be in a place where Mitch McConnell is even remotely considered courageous, simply because he was able to say that the insurrection was indeed an insurrection. But because they stand for nothing, well, here we are. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I cover the most important stories each week, and my guest is always one of the top political figures, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Cory Booker, and so many more. The podcast link is also right here on this screen, so give it a listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.